All right. I guess we can start with Kyle. When you were a college student athlete, what did you know about Title IX, and what did it mean for women's opportunities in athletics?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate. I played for a college coach, Jane Albright, at the University of Wisconsin, who really believed in educating. Mm-hmm. And so every single year she would talk to our team about Title IX, about, when it was introduced, why it was introduced, and how much it had benefited us as college athletes. And she'd also talk to the campers. So she'd bring in campers in every year, and then part of the camp she would actually talk about it there too. So I felt really fortunate because I feel like I have a really good base knowledge about what Title IX has done for college athletics.
That's,
for sure.
Yeah. What about you when you were?
Yeah, I would say I wasn't as fortunate to have a coach like that. But I knew kind of that men and women should be on the same playing field when it comes to athletics, and we should be equal in kind of how we operate. But I wasn't really knowledgeable, as we didn't really learn kind of what Title IX meant, and we didn't know the history of it or the history behind it. And I graduated in 2018, so I was in college from 2014 to 2018, and things were kind of already in place, and as far as I knew, we were getting the same benefits as the men's team were, even though we really weren't, but I just wasn't as knowledgeable as the history behind it all.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Not fully educated, but this is gonna help, I think, a lot. So what about your experience?
I mean, kind of the same thing. I grew up in a small town. I was very fortunate that I was receiving a full scholarship to play basketball. I just was very thankful. For sure. Did not know a whole lot about Title IX until probably my junior to my senior year. We saw that the men took charter buses, we took charter buses as well. So we thought, I was just thankful to be there until I was very fortunate to step into a coaching role where I graduated from. And I started to see, the men had their own weight room in their locker room. We did a study, not only for the university, but for the CAA to see where we compared with men and women, and we were at the bottom. In every category. So it was a little more eye-opening once I became a coach, but as a player, I really did not have any idea about Title IX until my junior or senior year, especially going into coaching.
So then, with coaching, has that kind of you said eye-opening, what are different changes, I guess, or the differences when you were a student athlete versus a coach, or just in general coaching?
I don't know. Again, we see more on the coaching side of things. So I saw all the budgets when I started coaching. So, and we were talking about budgets earlier. There was no comparison. It wasn't even close from men to women. Not only in I know my experience in basketball. I don't know it in any other sport, but. Baseball was higher than us. Some of the track and field budgets were men's budgets were higher than us. The only reason why I know that is because I did that study. So I guess I saw more as a coach than a player, and just as it continues, more and more each year. So.
I would say that's the biggest thing is the budget numbers. That's the easiest way to be able to see the differences in things, or. Like you said, charter flying versus, charter buses. It's a really big difference, but that's all through the budget. What you're allowed to, do based off of the dollar amounts that you have within your program. And, this is the only place that I've been fortunate to be a head coach. I love it here at Milwaukee. I think they do a great job of trying to provide the student athletes with the quality stuff. There are new practice facilities coming into play for men's and women's basketball. They've been great about really promoting it as a women's practice facility as much of a men's practice facility. But in the end of the day, the budget numbers are not the same.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie. So, yeah. Then I guess we can start with how Title IX has come since it began.
Okay.
Or do you wanna?
Yeah, I wanted because I'm an old senior, and I grew up in Ohio.
Okay.
There was Title IX was not in existence, so there were a lot of
Right.
discrepancies. I went to a couple colleges, but the junior college I went to was better than the four-year college that I went to, because we did have we had practice uniforms, and they were washed for us. We had our regular uniforms, and it was great. Then when I went to the four-year school, it was nothing. So we had to wash our own practice clothes, get our own shoes. I played field hockey, a little bit of basketball, and it was under the physical education department at that time. So there was men's athletics and then the physical education department. So we were under physical education. And so we didn't have trainers. If I sprained my ankle, I had to go to the men's building and get my ankle taped and then come back. So we knew the discrepancies. We knew the inequality of everything. But we just didn't do anything because we're student athletes, and we were hoping that the coaches would do something. And they never even thought about doing anything, I think, because they just wanted to continue coaching. You know, and so I didn't know about Title IX until I was a coach at Northwestern University for a few years, and that's when it came into existence. Yeah, and then it started to change slowly.
Oh, I bet.
Slowly.
Right.
You know,
I think you had the stat that when it first started, it was only 2% of the athletics budget was like the female athletes.
Yes. Yes.
So it was.
Well, even when I was at Northwestern and it just started to come into existence and the law was passed. When I applied there, they asked me. I said, "Can I coach basketball?" And they said, "Sure, you can coach basketball." How about field hockey? Sure, you could coach field hockey. Yeah. You know what? There were no teams. So I had to solicit for teams to start everything. No pay, no nothing. It's all combined. You know, it's like whatever your salary was, your salary is all these sports, and then you're coaching at the same time. So there was no salary for coaches until Title IX came into existence. Then all the sports from the physical education department went over to the athletic department, which was mainly men. And then it went over there, and that's when the change started.
So like you probably did not see a lot of other like female coaches for, would you say, for a while, or was it kind of, because you said like the men?
No, we never saw the men at either school.
Right.
Either when I was a student or a student athlete, or when I was a coach, because they're in a different location.
Oh, okay.
They were housed in a different location because women's sports were housed in physical education departments. You know, and so we didn't know what was going on. All we knew was we weren't really getting much. You know, we took cars to places. I will tell you, one time when we were playing a field hockey game, Loyola University, I will say Loyola University, because they came in a dump truck, and they came with the players in the back of their truck to come up and play field hockey. I mean, that's how bad it was before Title IX.
Wow.
Yes. We still played.
Yeah.
We loved it.
That's some perspective, because I'm just like, oh, I wish I could fly more. I could be in a dump truck.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess like talking about that, since Title IX has come a long way since, you know, it started, it still has a long way to go. How, like, what do you think, how it can still progress and impact students and student athletes?
Well, I think just awareness and you know, and I think sometimes when I'm at home and I want to watch a game, I don't find them on TV. And so TV would be a great asset, I think, to the girls and women in college to be on TV. And that's one thing that I really miss until women's basketball became part of NCAA. But, you know, you don't see much. You know, one time I saw Texas play volleyball, and I was like, oh, I want to watch them. Because some of my players now have players playing with full scholarships. And that is a great asset to Title IX, because they have their children playing full ride at Texas, full ride at Kansas, full ride at Bowling Green, you know. And it's great to see. It feels old, but it's great to see that they have opportunities that we didn't have, and that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the players that I coached, really helped all of you, and your coach Kyle helped all of you. It's a step-by-step process, and each 10 years, something else it increases, something else gets better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I would say TV and communication
Yeah.
and newspapers. Mhm.
That's one of the things that we had been talking
Yeah.
about actually as a staff, was just the changes from last year's NCAA tournament to this year's NCAA tournament. I think we all mentioned that on the women's side. And I know we're going to talk about that probably a little later, but you're not seeing it in the other sports though. You know, I mean,
Right.
it was very noticeable this year that women's basketball took a step in that direction for the NCAA tournament. However, you know, with the women's volleyball tournament, I can't remember the numbers, but the percentage of aired games was really, really low compared to what the women's basketball and the men's basketball. So I think just even the equality amongst the women's sports, like trying to like improve softball, tennis, you know, seeing other athletes continue to like build, I think would be really big for just women's sports in general.
Yeah, sure.
I know we talked a lot about that as a staff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I guess can we start talking about how Title IX can impact younger athletes starting at, like, you know, middle school, grade school? What does the future of the sport, what would that look like for them?
Well, I can kind of talk just on my experience. When I was younger, like AAU basketball is big now.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that. Growing up in West Virginia, I did not have that. The only reason why I was recruited is because we were fortunate enough to make it to the state tournament. So now we have, in West Virginia, in the area where I grew up, we have 3 or 4 just women's AAU programs that they now can take part in, which is big, because that's a big thing for college basketball. July recruiting is all AAU events to be exposed. So I think that's a big step in the right direction, that they have younger athletes have that opportunity to be recruited, to go to different events, and not just be recruited because you went to the state tournament and you didn't go anywhere else. Yeah, I had that opportunity when I was a senior in high school, and I had to travel about 45 minutes one way to practice with a team and to participate. But by your senior year, it's almost too late now. So, and it was almost too late for me as well. So I think that's a big part from my experience.
Yeah, like I started playing club volleyball when I was 10, you know, and like I think now for volleyball players, like if you wanted to go play college, like you gotta be in club or like the AAU version,
Right,
you know?
right.
And like that has really grown. I'm sure like you can relate with like AAU. I play a little AAU basketball too. It's like now like there's more opportunities for younger kids. It's just that like that obviously like wasn't there. And yeah, I don't know if anyone else would want to add anything about how.
Well, I think seeing the, like, similar to what we were just talking about, seeing people you want to grow up to be like on TV. So just like the airing of volleyball games, the airing of basketball games, the, you know, how the NCAA women's tournament was portrayed this year on TV. I can imagine that there was a lot of young girls watching those games thinking, I want to be like this person, you know, and you look at shoe companies like Adidas and Nike, and I think that they're doing a much better job of portraying women. You know, you're seeing like Serena Williams, you're seeing Candace Parker as their main ads, not just men's basketball players, not just football players. You're starting to see like women athletes have these major shoe contract deals that are also then allowing young girls to like aspire to be like someone. And so that is exciting, I think, to be able to see that now. I didn't have that when I was growing up. When I was growing up, you know, you always looked at the Wheaties boxes, and occasionally there'd be you know, like Mary Lou Retton would hit the Wheaties box, and I wanted to be a gymnast because I'd see her on the Wheaties box.
That's so true.
Yeah, you know, and now I just like see that impact and that influence and how like more mainstream with social media, that these ads can really kind of take these younger generations to that next level of wanting to participate in sports. And I think that's just going to continue to help grow the numbers. And I think it's going to make the sports that much better. I mean, it's going to be highly competitive. I mean, I think now about our student athletes, and I wonder, like, could I have played against them? They're pretty good. Like, I think they're better than where we were when I played. I think
you did.
Appreciate you, May. But I think the sport has just been getting better, like, and more competitive, and it's just fun to watch. So how much farther and how much better can it get over the next, 10 years or 20 years?
You know, what I've seen family and community involvement and encouragement. If you go to a basketball game, in the past, there was hardly anyone in the stands. And now you go, you see the parents really encouraging them, sometimes too loud, sometimes obnoxious, sometimes obnoxious. But, I have some, I didn't have parents come to my games. I didn't have family come to my games. But now I have a couple nieces and a couple nephews who have children. And they're starting to play softball at 10 years old, and they have 2 daughters, and their daughters are going to go. They're going to play, and that encouragement is so, and the confidence that those little girls have is so exciting because they want to play, and it's not only their family, but the community is there for all of them. Like the community is here for college athletes on the collegiate level, and so I think that's a big difference, that they want their daughter to have what the boys have, and they will speak out. They're not afraid to say anything, because if those boys are getting shoes or track shoes, my daughter wants track shoes too, and so I see that as a really big difference in young girls, starting at age 8 and 10. Did you ever watch soccer games that are 8 and 10 years old? They're out in the field. The parents are wild, and they're all wild. And so I think that confidence builder in them, and I think that's going to help in the future.
Even having like that representation, like seeing that, and then that can help build even more confidence.
Yes.
And even continue to grow.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. And I think that probably can also then, we kind of talking about like viewership or like ads, that going into like now how the Final Four, Women's Final Four grew exponentially compared to last year, the previous years. What do you think the reasons are for that? And do you think that this is a possible turning point? I think so.
Yeah, for sure. I think just from, we talked about the last year and the Final Four in San Antonio, and how, one player, it shouldn't have had to take one player to like put it on social media about kind of what they were given compared to what the men were given. And so with that happening, and then obviously it got it on media, we talk about the media, how it can really portray such great things. And so for her to be able to do that, and how now this year how much it's progressed is amazing. Just reading about how they were given, at the Women's Final Four, they were given kind of the same lounges that the men were given, where they can, play different games. They have all these big screen TVs that they can watch and hang out in, kind of like the men do. They were given the same gift the men were given, whereas last year they weren't. So I think obviously it shouldn't have had to take that for them to, but it's also a good thing because now we're more aware of it, and we can continue to progress and continue to grow and get better and be aware of it. And I think it'll just, we talked about the last question about, I think it'll just keep getting better and better. I'm hopeful it will, but I also think it will.
Yeah. I also think social media has a lot to do with that, and this whole concept of the NILs, which is a big part of the game now. And I think we were just looking up some statistics here recently, just about how actually looking at during that Final Four, the NILs, it was men's football, women's basketball was second, and men's basketball was actually third as to what players were bringing in dollar amount. And 4 out of the top 5 players on the basketball side are women. And so, you look at that from a comparison perspective, and you think like them blasting out on social media and being able to create posts and make money for these posts is putting them in a position where it's increasing that viewership. It's putting people wanting to watch their games because they're kind of getting to see them behind the scenes. You know, they're getting to like kind of be in their lives through their social media pages, which is then making them want to tune in to watch their games. And so I think that's been a really big changeover too as to why the viewership, and I do think it's a turning point. I think it's going to continue to grow. And I think universities are having to educate on how to, with the whole NIL concept, on how to learn how to make money for yourself within this, because that's only going to continue to grow your own personal fan base at your university as well. So it's a big part of it, I think.
I think it's real important for students. Like the one student who talked about the weight room. It's really great that they're stepping up rather than the coaches, because sometimes the coaches can get a backlash from universities or presidents or whoever. So I think it's great that students are stepping up, and also for like women's soccer. I know that the pro soccer, you know, the women want equal pay, and so it's really nice to see students and female athletes speaking up about any type of discrimination.
For sure.
Nice to see that.
Yeah. That I think it was a TikTok that she posted that was like, I mean, it was eye opening. It was like, oh my gosh, but obviously like created so many more positive things from it. Like I remember watching the Final Four. BMW now has this ad. I don't know if you've noticed. Like they are supporting women's. Like they're like one of the main companies that are actually trying to give so that more women's sports are on media now, or like on TV, or like actually broadcasting, which is like you go to a men's basketball game, you are always gonna find it on TV. You know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, and women's basketball, I know volleyball, I know like even tennis. This weekend I wanted to watch the conference championship. It was difficult to find, you know, and that's hopefully now